Aiden. I'm from Sydney. I'm one of the weird ones that always wanted to be a dentist. I wanted to be a dentist since I was about 5 or 6. I only see the patients that come in through social media now. In Australia, I suppose it's pretty different. I'd say probably like 99.999% of dentists don't do that. I'm lucky enough that we've worked on our social media to the point where I have a really consistent patient flow. I do what I love every day.
If someone is listening to this and wants to attract more patients, what are the most important things to change?
I spoke to the camera like I was speaking to someone who has no dental experience whatsoever. I removed all jargon and technical terms and I simplified my language. I'm never saying the word calculus. I hate saying the word tartar, but I talk about it like barnacles under a boat and how it needs to be scraped and cleaned. That's what's under your gums. Think about what patients want to see, your before and afters, and then deliver.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Dental Dialogue. I want to introduce a very special guest, somebody that I've been trying to get onto the podcast for some time. Finally, it's been happening, and want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Aidan Doherty. He's a well-renowned dentist over in Sydney, right?
That's right, Sydney, Australia.
Doing some fantastic work on social media. Recently just hit 20,000 followers. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, maybe if you could just make a brief introduction, who you are, maybe why you went through the dental field, and just talk a bit about that.
Sure. I'm Aiden. I'm from Sydney. I'm one of the weird ones that always wanted to be a dentist. Do you know there's people there's weird people that know what they want to do from the very start. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a really good experience in that my dad's very good friends who's passed away now, he was our dentist, and we always had a great time when we went to the dentist because he was a friend, you know. So from that experience in a small little dental practice, it wasn't anything big or fancy. I wanted to be a dentist since I was about 5 or 6. So I always had that as my goal, and I knew I would get there. And I literally worked through all school, everything, university with that one goal of being a dentist. I graduated 10 years ago now, which sounds weird, but it's just coming up to 10 years in a month. So I've been practicing as a general dentist in Sydney, and I love general dentistry, but in the past 4 years, I started looking into surgery, and I looked into essentially cosmetic dentistry more, and I only practice surgery and cosmetic dentistry now. So with cosmetics, I suppose we're talking about Invisalign, whitening, composite resin dentistry, so bonding veneers, and also a lot of porcelain veneers. So yeah, I'm in a pretty unique situation where I've got a team around me of general and OHTs, oral hygiene therapists, and general dentists, and I feed them all the general work, and then I do my cosmetic work. So I only see the patients that come in through social media now. And in Australia, I suppose it's pretty different because most dentists don't do that. I'd say probably like 99.999% of dentists don't do that. But I'm lucky enough that we've worked on our social media to the point where I have a really consistent patient flow, and I don't really see emergencies. I don't see emergencies. I don't see general patients. And I do what I love every day. So that's me.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Awesome. My question is, what came first? Was it the social media that came first, then the switch to more leaning towards cosmetic work yourself? Or was it that you wanted to do a lot of the cosmetic consultations and work, and you decided to use social media as an avenue for that? Or was it just an amalgamation of both?
I suppose when Instagram became popular around 2015, I opened an account, and it was like a Dr. Aiden account, basically. It was under a different name at that time, but then it switched to the Dr. Aiden account a couple of years later. And I used it, but I used it incorrectly. So I made a major mistake from the get-go, where in Australia there was really no social media influence. Like we're like 5, 10 years behind the US and the UK. And I was sitting with some friends and friends who I met up with the other night actually, and we talk about this all the time because we were sitting in a marketing course together, two of us. We hadn't met before, but we've become very good friends now. And it was about traditional marketing, and they covered websites and they covered Facebook. But Instagram, because they were a little bit older, you know, at the time they were in their late 30s to 40s, which is what we thought was old then. Now I'm mid 30s, so I'm old now. But I know it's weird how this happens, but essentially he was saying to me, Aiden, like no one's doing Instagram here at all. Why don't we start Instagram and we've got a chance to be early when no one else does. But my major mistake was what every other dentist seems to do is I put my posts up for self-validation from other dentists. So all of my content was angled towards dentists, which is the dumbest thing I could have ever done because all my followers were dentists. And I suppose at the time that was what I wanted. And I built up a big following of, well, I built up a following of dentists. It wasn't big, but it was all the young dentists started following me. And one benefit was they're all the people that started doing my courses because I started then doing speaking and courses a few years later. So they had watched my journey through their dental school while they were doing schooling. And when they graduated, I'd been out for maybe 5 years at that time, and they started doing my courses. So it was good for me because one of my businesses is education, but it wasn't good because I wasn't getting any patients from it. And my wife kept telling me like, open another account or just change how you're doing this because the patients don't want to see what you're posting. And I didn't believe her for ages. Of course, I didn't listen to her. And then she was right, of course. I don't say that. She's not here, so I can say that out loud. So she was
send her the recording.
She was, of course, right. And then I changed things in 2019, 2020. So like during COVID, out of COVID, I changed it, how I approach social media. And it was for patients, not for dentists. And that's what worked. And that's when my numbers started growing, like little by little. And I started getting patients requesting to see me via Instagram.
Okay. What would be interesting, because I think we see every dentist doing that. Like, we recorded also with a lot of dentists in person, and one thing that I always have to remind them of is like, don't talk to the camera like you explain to a student, because that will attract mainly, like you said, we know exactly that phenomenon that really the students are the ones that start following. But what would you say does that mean if someone is listening to this and wants to attract more patients? Like, what are the most important things to change? What would you say?
So
what were the biggest things you changed?
Yeah, so the most important things to change and what I changed, I spoke to the camera like I was speaking to someone who has no dental experience whatsoever. I removed all jargon and technical terms, and I simplified my language. So I learned a bit about that from going over to the US, to Seattle, and I did John Coyce's modules there in the Coyce Academy, which is world-renowned, really good. And the way he teaches to speak to people, communication is number one. I always say, you can be an average dentist and a good communicator, you'll be very successful, but you can't be a successful dentist the opposite way. So speak to patients in ways, in metaphors, in terminology, like when I talk about basic things. If I'm talking about perio and I'm talking about calculus, I'm never saying the word calculus. I hate saying the word tartar, but I talk about it like barnacles under a boat and how it needs to be scraped and cleaned. That's what's under your gums if they've got periodontal disease. Or if they've got, caries, I'll never say the word caries. I would say words like decay or like it's rotting, but it's like termites are burrowing in your teeth and they're eating away at the tooth. So simplify things for your audience. Don't post anything with blood ever. And if you're going to, think again and never do it again, because you shouldn't ever post blood. That's a big thing. Make sure your images, your photos are clean and crisp. Never post something which looks crap. Like if the image is not good quality, just don't post it. Unless it's very old and it's a follow-up of a case and you can show your evolution a bit, like, this is 10, 15 years ago or whatever, a different camera setup, but don't post any crappy images, because the standard of images these days, even from an iPhone, is so high. And if a dentist can't even take a good image, and it's not the right angle or it's not clear, it's blurry, don't post it. And just think about what patients want to see. They want to see your before and afters, if you're allowed to post them in your region, because some places you can't, which is happening in Australia probably in the next 12 months for us, I'd say. And think about if you can post testimonials, which you can't in Australia, but I know you can overseas a lot. So make the most of those testimonials. And yeah, basically you want to go for emotion. Emotion sells. And I don't like saying sells, but it does. That's what it's about, being able to sell yourself and then deliver. So it doesn't mean undeliver, but it means deliver and make sure you deliver or over deliver. So emotion really sells, and showing before and afters, the patient journey, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, what you said about the metaphors, I remember that we made one reel, maybe you remember, Jose, for one of our professors. And we were talking because he is a dentist in Romania, and there is this big thing that people brush their teeth with baking powder.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And he explained it, I remember exactly. He explained it like if you clean a window, but
Class, that's it.
Yeah, he
That's
did
what I
that.
used to.
And really,
yes, that's what I used
because
to.
this video, I remember when he did the comparison, it had the first video, it hit 900,000 views.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Which was
So true,
crazy.
though.
Yeah, so that's it's a good advice. Like really, I think that's the biggest one to think like every single video that those people don't know nothing. And I mean that's also a great side effect, I guess. And maybe you can talk also about that. Because a lot of dentists ask, why do you need to be on social media? I have enough patients, or maybe for me it's not all about the money, but what is it doing for you as a dentist who is quite clearly also educating society about dental hygiene?
Yeah, I suppose it's such an awesome tool to be able to use it to educate the wider masses, because you can give oral hygiene advice to your 8 patients you see in a day. But if you're able to broadcast that to 1,000 people, even like 100 people, or 1,000 or 10,000 or however many thousand, you're able to spread your education and cast that net so much wider. So it's such a powerful tool, and and education is an important pillar. If you're going to think about your content pillars for social media, which is what you would think about when you're going to plan all your social media strategy, education, it should be a content pillar for you, because that's what we are. We're here to be educators for our field of expertise, and that's a really, really important one.
Yeah, that sounds good. What would you say, just because you mentioned the pillars, what are the main ones that you would go down or that you have at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say educate. I say like try and keep it to 4 content pillars. I would say education is one. I'd say before and after is another. I'd say patient transformations in terms of the emotional impact, the journey. And then I'd say maybe one other pillar might be your personality and like you as the person, because that's also what most dentists don't do. Yeah.
How is it that a dentist especially senses something that you're saying that most dentists don't do? First of all, the first question I would ask is, are you thinking they don't do that because they don't know that it's something that is probably going to be liked by the people watching? Or is it something that they can't do?
Maybe it could be a few different reasons. Like, number one, it could be that they feel awkward and they don't know how much they can expose to on that profile. Like, a lot of dentists have 2 profiles, or have their personal and their private, and I just have one because I don't have time to manage 2 profiles. And there's things you can do to be able to cater towards just your private friends if you really wanted to anyway. But they probably feel awkward, or they feel like it might not be appropriate. And there's going to be things that aren't appropriate, right, to put on a doctor account. But there's a lot of stuff the patients would love to see. They would love to see maybe a little bit of you and your family. They'd like to see that you're a normal person. They want to see that they can relate to you, that, you're living the same sort of life as them. They want to relate to that. And the more they can relate to you, the more they'll make a connection. They'll probably come to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you seen that, like, change how your relationships are with the patients themselves? Like the patients that you get through social media now, are they any different from the patients that you are seeing, those who just came through your website or recommendations? And if so,
Yeah.
what are the differences?
Well, I suppose when they come in, they feel like they already know me a bit. So your barrier of entry is decreased. Like when they talk in communication courses, they talk a lot about like the icebreaker, getting to know the patient, building rapport. They feel like they already know me a little bit more to start with, and it probably makes them feel a bit more at ease in seeing us and seeing myself and my team, because a lot of my stuff is me and the team. So they already feel like there's a positive energy, there's a good vibe. And I think it breaks down those initial barriers where they feel like they already know the person they're going to see.
It's sometimes happening just out
Yeah.
of curiosity, because we had the same with our, like the first business I explained, where we were like traveling. Like sometimes people just approach you like they would already know you for years, and you're just confused if you know the person. Like sometimes is that the case? It's someone sitting in the chair, it's like, yeah. You're like, wait, do we know each other?
I know, right? Yeah, because they'll ask you about things that you're like, oh God, like how do you know that? Like a few weeks ago, I was away. They'll go, oh, so how was the trip? Like, tell me about it. And I'm thinking, do I actually know you already, or? But like it's just because they've been watching, and they've taken, they're excited by what you're doing as well, or your life. They've invested a little bit themselves.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing, especially for dentists, because people are like, so many people are afraid, and finally they can get to know the person beforehand. How did you, because you said already that you have a big inflow of patients from your 20,000 subscribers, and I mean from different areas online. We know that it's possible even from 1,000 followers to actually generate income or to get patients. How did you set it up so that when people see your content or they become interested, what would you say are the most important things to do?
So they need to be able to easily click on links in your bio to direct them to how to book. They need to know how easy it is to book with you from stories and in the caption. They need it really spelled out very clearly, A, B, C, D steps. So you need to make sure that your website makes it very easy to book and it's not messing them around, because if it's more than a few clicks, people get deterred. So that's very important. And then I suppose I also make it that they can contact me and DM me, and I can give them things like opinions about their teeth. Like this depends on how much time you want to invest as well, because other colleagues of mine, they'll never have enough. They'll say they don't have enough time, but they can make the time. But they think they don't have enough time to do this sort of stuff. They don't have enough time to interact with patients. Whereas for me, I just understand that, an hour of my day is going to be talking to patients on Instagram or TikTok, because TikTok's probably even bigger for me this year. And that I will, if I put in that effort, then they'll end up in my chair.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Have you dabbled in any? I know there's a lot of like AI and different kind of automations that can be set up with Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. Are you doing everything manually at the moment? What you're the one interacting with everybody?
Yeah. So last year I brought in someone to help film the content, and then I brought someone in essentially full time this year in the clinic to do that for me. So she collates, edits, she comes up with content ideas. I do too, so it's like 50-50, but she films it all, edits it, and posts it. She'll put up stories for me. I put up my own stories though. Like mine's are less polished, and I think that's important. Like hers are polished, but I think it's important not to look like it needs to look organic. And I think in 2023, 2024, that's so critical. You can't look like you used to in 2022. It was like had to be so structured and perfect. But now it has to be, it's like all UGC stuff, right? Like everything looks like it's organic, and that's how it should look. But the automation of the messages is a good question, because We tried to do automation so we started running some um, meta ads, and we would automate messages. And we did try this for 3 or 4 months this year, and I found that the conversion was really low because they didn't get to speak to someone who was able to, like, it's just not the same as speaking to a real person.
Yeah, it's always like, yeah, I know
It's
what you
just not
mean.
the
Like it's,
same.
yeah, I don't get the value fully, like not the individual like interaction that they actually would need.
I
Yeah,
agree. And they know it's not real as well, right? They know it's AI.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like, I think
and
AI is amazing for a lot of things, but I don't think for me it's going to be useful unless somehow it learns how I like analyze a
yeah,
patient's photo about, because they'll send me photos of their teeth and I'll tell them, hey, like based on these photos, this is what I'm thinking. You need to come in and see me, but these are my thoughts and this is what you probably would get or might need or XYZ. But AI can't do that.
yeah, yeah. Maybe in 1 year, that's, I mean, that moves very quick. We
Yeah, you
we
never
will
know though.
see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But what is also great point that we also realize, which is for everyone listening, if they want to start, if you want to start as a dentist, the content, and in the end, it's called social media. I mean, oftentimes it's not like that. Most of the things that are on there, but it goes back to more organic content. So we also realized that um, the content got, let's say, more polished, more professional over the last years, and you had to really film with a crazy camera. You had to edit very good, but it's actually going back because people are so tired of that crazy content where they can't relate. And I think it's even enough for dentists if someone wants to start to just document their day in stories. So to just yeah, have someone with the phone running after you, you just explain, like you explained to a person having an internship, to the phone, and yeah, afterwards you can also cut that up if you want to. So yeah, that is, I think, a great direction we are going. It's easier for the creators now.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100% it is.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
Not just easier for the creators as well, but it's easier content for the viewers to consume too.
Mm,
Yeah,
Because when you dumb it down, and it's not, I don't like to use the phrase dumb it down, but when you simplify the content for the viewers, um, it's easier for them to understand. It's something that you raised at the beginning that, you know, you have to kind of not use loads of dental terminology and jargon because you don't want to. I mean, yes, we're trying to educate the people who are watching, but it's a very huge gap. We spent a lot of time in medical school and in dental school to actually learn what we know. And it's a
mm.
huge gap to get people who, some people have never been in a dentist chair before, ever. So some things that we think are worldwide terminology that should be known by everybody. There are a lot of people who just don't know that and would be deterred by how grandiose the language you're using is or how scary it may seem. And that could be a potential person not just missing out on, well, for you as a sale, but you missing out on actually helping them as well.
100%.
So
Yeah.
simplifying that knowledge could also help out those people who don't know things that they probably should know. And
Yeah.
it's not going to
People
scare them
relate
away.
to it better. I feel
Yeah,
people can relate so much easier to an iPhone
that's the
footage
thing. Yeah,
of a day in the life
yeah,
versus some massive introduction with all these graphics and text
hmm
sliding on the screen. Like that's good to have on your page as like a really polished kind of pinned highlight, maybe like
yeah,
yeah,
introducing Dr. X, but I don't
mm
think it's good for like a Tuesday night feed post.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
hmm
that's, I 100% agree.
Mm.
And you said that you were doing meta ads and you were running them to like an automated message. What did you find that was different when you were doing like paid advertising compared to the organic content that you're doing currently?
Yeah, good question. We did paid advertising from January till June, and then I stopped it completely. I've never done paid advertising before. We've done like, I've done lots of different advertising outside of social media and figured
hmm
out what works, what doesn't work. And sometimes it works during that time, then 6 months later it doesn't work. But the paid advertising for me didn't work because the quality of the leads were really poor. There were people who we would then contact. I was paying people to contact them, you know, my staff, and then they would either not answer or they would answer and then say they weren't interested, even though they'd filled out a submission form. Usually that's what we would do in dental, I suppose. When we do paid advertising, we get them to fill out like a submission form for an appointment, like an appointment request, or get them to book online directly. And they'd book online directly and no show, or they would fill out the form and then there would be a really poor leads. We couldn't either get a hold of them or they just were, you know, a bit sketchy when they were going to book. So for me, I just dropped paid advertising because I had such a bad experience with it.
Yeah. So you fully double down organic and just for the, I mean, what I
Yeah.
also like is as long for the older colleagues, I would say it is hard like to get the motivation to get into the organic content to then work, let's say 10 more years. But for the young colleagues on the long run, I think it's the best strategy, like to really go down the road of organic content, authentic content. Yeah, and to just share what you're doing. Did you ever plan, or I didn't maybe have a proper look. Did you do you also upload long form videos?
Yeah, good question. We've experimented with videos of up to a couple of minutes, but nothing longer than that. Really, no, we haven't.
So no YouTube was some. Is
Is
that
that something
something
that's in
you
the
are maybe
pipeline?
thinking?
That's
Yeah,
that's the next evolution, isn't it? That's kind of like
yeah,
YouTube Shorts, and then YouTube long videos is going to be the next kind of thing we start looking into. Because I think YouTube's like very powerful as well. And I
Yeah.
think that YouTube's come back in terms of like how powerful it is. So I think it's something that we'd be crazy not to focus on as well. And also like always keeping our eye out for any new platforms that launch.
hmm yeah.
Have you guys
What
noticed any interesting platforms that have launched recently?
Not, I don't think so. What we definitely know, after our first experience with YouTube, we had like a lot of long form content. Like every week we upload like a 15-minute, 20-minute video. And, we back then, just to give some context, our first business was that we helped medical students also go to Romania. So,
Mm,
that was the whole idea. And we just first thought was we want to tell people about Loophole. Then Josue said, "Hey, we need to promote this. The website alone will not work." But of course, as students, we had no money. So what did we do? We just made the videos. And I think also maybe as a hint for you, because you're kind of looking that direction, um, it even becomes more powerful if you can manage to lead people from social media, where you get the eyeballs
yes.
on your brand, to then transfer them into long form content, because that is where the people can really identify like crazy, where they really think they know
Mm,
you because they watch the longer videos. Their attention span is much higher. For example, one person once asked me, "Tell me the last 5 reels you watched," and all of us might not be able to remember what we watched today. But if you get asked for a longer video, you know. And that is the thing where I think dentists should also look inside, because there will be, yeah, it's even crazier, and also the people who come through there even, yeah, even more qualified people.
yeah, I reckon that's a
Yeah.
really good point. Yeah, really, really good point. Because yeah, the longer they're interacting with the content, the more obviously the more value they're placing in it. So the more that they're going to be likely to probably come in and then see you as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like in our first business, we did no paid advertising at all. Everything was
Mm,
organic.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, I think for 2 years, we only did long form content. And then we started doing shorter form content. And that's when our brand kind of blew up. We didn't
mm,
realize that until the end, but
Yeah.
all of our clients did come from that longer form content. And if you, in any field, this is dentistry, everything, if you manage to, first of all, you're in a really well-placed situation where you do have a brand built up on TikTok and on Instagram as well. So it's going to be very easy for you, not just because you're used to being in front of camera, you speak really well, and you have a lot to give as well, and you have experience doing that, to then transfer across into longer form videos. But you will also have a viewership coming automatically.
Yeah.
And if you can then
mm,
Yeah.
crack that long form video, you will go from being somebody that everybody sees on Instagram and people would remember and follow throughout the day, to somebody being like a household name. People would
Yeah.
really know who you are, grandmas, mothers, here and there, and not just remember you just on Instagram like for a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
a great
that's
point.
really the plan. And you know what people used to do before, and the mistake that we made was to start with long form videos and
Yeah,
then go
Yeah.
into short form. But it's good you have it around because it's
Yeah.
much easier to build a platform doing short form content and then moving on into long form.
yeah, yeah. No, that's invaluable. That's a really good point for everyone who's watching and listening.
Yeah, for sure.
And how to structure maybe their plan for the next 2024, 2025.
Yeah, definitely they should take your route. First, short form content. Also, let's say when you produce the videos, and I mean you put much more work into long form content, it's also that should be a bit more polished, not fully, but
Agreed.
it's different, and people expect when they go on YouTube a certain quality. You don't want to start producing that and practicing on that, because once you made that video about why you should go to the dentist every 3 months, then after half a year when you brought up your quality, you're like, oh damn it, I want to
Yeah.
record it
Try
again.
to delete it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's why that's the better way. But really, it is really powerful. I think we had like 5 organic bookings per day just due to the content.
Yeah, that's
Um,
insane.
that's insane. By that time, what is funny, we thought like for us it was normal, and when we stopped and we switched to this industry and we told people, they were like, "This is crazy." And now we realize like, oh wow, this really is good. So long form content for every dentist, highly recommended.
Yeah, that's awesome point.
Perfect. Great. I think
I think
this brings us.
it's been an excellent pod. What we try not to bring it over 30 minutes, but I think we should do a part 2 of this because I would love to get into talking a little bit more about what you do on the educational side. That's something that I think will be very interesting for the people who already follow you, who may not know of exactly what you can provide in terms of education for other younger dentists
Oh,
too. But I
more
think
than happy to.
this has been
I think
awesome.
we could talk for a long time.
Yeah,
There's
Exactly.
so many
yeah,
topics. I love it. I love
yeah,
dentistry. I love business. Um, I'm always looking like at different businesses, how they structure things. I look at like, because I've got a scrubs business. So, and that's the big challenge. That's one of the big challenges for me right now is how to sell my scrubs, right? So I'm analyzing businesses. I'm looking at Lululemon. I'm looking at how all of these activewear companies market. I'm going through all of their meta ads. So I'm going back through their history of meta ads because it's all, you can access it all. It's amazing. And I'm looking at
yeah.
every ad they've posted in the last 10 years. I'm seeing, how long they ran it for, why, how many minutes the ad went for. So like business, dentistry, everything, love it. And yeah, more than happy to have a chat to you guys again at some point.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds great. Perfect. Yeah, for everyone else, don't forget to like and also subscribe if you don't want to miss out on further content like this. And yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great episode.
All of
And
Aidan's links will be down below as well, so you can go follow him on Instagram if you're ever in the Sydney area and you need some work done. Have a look at his Instagram. The work he does is amazing, so you can book directly over there and
yeah,
find him inside Sydney.
yeah,
Thank
perfect.
you guys. I appreciate you having me on. It was a really good chat.